cheating wife wanted a divorce, but she had no idea what I had planned. I never thought I'd see this day. 10 years of marriage, 2 kids, a house, and countless shared memories. All of it felt like it was built on trust. I always thought we were partners in every sense. Sure, like every couple, we had our ups and downs. Lately, there were minor arguments about work, money, and the kids' schedules. Nothing that I thought would ever threaten our marriage. But then, small things started stacking up. She'd get a little too defensive about her phone. Late nights at work that seemed a little too convenient. Occasional unexplained absences. At first, I tried to shrug it off. I didn't want to be the paranoid spouse. I told myself maybe she was just stressed, or maybe I was overthinking. Then I found it. It was a Tuesday evening. She had left her laptop open while grabbing a glass of water, and curiosity, or maybe instinct, got the better of me. I saw the messages before she could close it. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. At first, I thought it was a joke, some misunderstanding. But the more I read, the more my stomach sank. The messages weren't innocent. There were plans, confessions, and flirtations that left no room for doubt. My wife, my life partner, was cheating on me. I sat there, frozen. Disbelief, anger, hurt, and betrayal collided all at once. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to break something, but I didn't. I just stared at the screen, as if staring harder would erase what I had seen. When she came back, I couldn't hide it. I confronted her. Not screaming, not crying. Calm, controlled, at least on the outside. "Who is this?" I asked, holding up the laptop. Her reaction was almost cinematic. First, denial. "I don't know what you're talking about." Then excuses. "It's not what it looks like." Eventually, when she realized I wasn't buying it, she admitted it. My heart shattered in a way words can't describe. 10 years of marriage, gone, all because of her choices. Then came the words that cut deeper than anything else. "I want a divorce." I blinked. My mind raced. Was this really happening? After everything, she just wanted to walk away? And the worst part, she had that look, the one that said she thought I would settle quietly, that she would take everything she wanted and I'd nod and walk away. I felt shock give way to a cold, determined clarity. I wasn't going to let her cheat and take what she wanted from me without a fight. I wouldn't be that guy who lost everything because he loved too much. I stayed calm, even as anger boiled beneath the surface. I knew I had to think, not react. I started making mental notes, evidence, witnesses, timing, details. I would need everything if this divorce turned into a battle. And somehow, I felt a small, grim sense of satisfaction. She thought she could manipulate and charm her way through this, but she hadn't counted on me. I don't know what comes next. Court? Lawyers? Public humiliation? Maybe all of it. But one thing is certain. She thinks she can walk away with everything, but she doesn't know I'm not done yet.
Update 1. After the initial shock of discovering my wife's betrayal, I knew I had to get serious. This wasn't just about anger anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't manipulate her way out of accountability. I started by researching my rights, reviewing state divorce laws, and reaching out to a lawyer who specialized in cases like mine. I didn't want an amateur handling this. I needed someone who understood not just the legal process, but also the psychological warfare that often accompanied betrayal. The first step was gathering evidence. I collected everything I could. Screenshots of messages, timelines, bank statements showing suspicious transactions, and even small notes from friends who had overheard things or noticed her strange behavior. I documented everything meticulously. Every detail mattered. Every little slip she had made would eventually become a nail in the coffin of her arrogance. Speaking of arrogance, she hadn't changed a bit. She walked into court during our first appearances with a smug smile, as if victory was already hers. Her lawyer mirrored her confidence, striding through the halls like they owned the place. I, on the other hand, stayed quiet, composed, observing every gesture, every slight flicker of insecurity or pride. The first hearing was nothing dramatic on the surface. She requested temporary custody arrangements, financial support, and made statements painting herself as the innocent party. I listened, said little, and allowed her lawyer to dominate the narrative. But I was planting seeds. I subtly dropped hints about my preparation, mentioning certain pieces of evidence I had already collected without fully revealing them. The slight furrow of her lawyer's brow didn't go unnoticed. Even minor power plays mattered. I filed motions that seemed small and procedural, requests for detailed financial disclosures, formal depositions of witnesses, and specific documentation of assets. Each motion wasn't just about bureaucracy. It was about showing that I wasn't going to let her take the easy way out. I could see her lawyer's composure starting to crack. Every time they tried to act confident, they had to face the fact that I knew more than I let on. Outside the courtroom, I made sure that my stance was clear to those who mattered. Family members and friends were discreetly informed of her behavior and my preparations, creating an invisible layer of accountability around her. Social media, carefully monitored, became another subtle tool. I didn't post anything publicly about the situation, but I noticed her anxiety increase as she realized her actions weren't as secret as she thought. Through all this, I maintained composure. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Every time she tried to project dominance or control, I responded with calm, measured words. It unnerved her, and I could see her frustration mounting. One of the more satisfying moments came during a deposition. Her lawyer tried to rattle me with aggressive questions, hoping to provoke an emotional reaction. I stayed composed, answering precisely and only what was necessary. I let them overreach, knowing I had documented every inconsistency in their approach. I could practically feel the tension behind their forced politeness. There were moments I almost smiled, just slightly, when subtle details emerged. Friends corroborating her unusual behavior, financial statements showing transactions she hadn't accounted for, messages I had preserved that contradicted her claims. Each tiny revelation wasn't public yet, but the weight was there, waiting to tip the balance. I also made sure to leave her guessing. She didn't know exactly what I had, only that I had something. The uncertainty gnawed at her. Every glance I gave in court, every nod when a witness spoke, every silent observation made it clear that I wasn't intimidated. And her lawyer? I could see it in small ways. The tapping fingers, the strained smile, the brief stammer in responses. They were realizing that I wasn't an easy target. By the end of the first few hearings, it was obvious she underestimated me. She had assumed that anger and betrayal would make me scatterbrained, emotional, and easy to sway. But instead, I had turned those emotions into focus, strategy, and subtle psychological advantage. I knew the real showdown hadn't yet begun. I had held back my strongest evidence, the cards that would leave no doubt of her betrayal and arrogance. Everything up to this point had been set up, laying groundwork, testing reactions, building a foundation that no court or lawyer could ignore. As we left the courthouse that day, she gave me a look. Confidence still masked her features, but there was something different. A flicker of unease, a tiny crack in the armor she had built. Her lawyer walked beside her, carefully shielding her, but I could sense their collective nervousness. I didn't need to say anything. The message was clear. I was prepared. I wasn't intimidated. And when the time came, the truth would hit like a hammer. For now, I waited. I stayed patient. I continued documenting, refining, and preparing. Each meeting, each filing, each quiet observation was a move in a game she thought she was winning. Little did she know, the final reveal, the evidence that would shatter her confidence and leave her lawyer shaking, was still in my pocket, ready for the perfect moment. Her overconfidence had been her greatest weakness, and I intended to exploit it fully. The court had no idea what was coming. Her lawyer certainly didn't, and neither did she.
Final update. The day of the final hearing arrived, and I knew everything would change. I didn't just walk into court that morning. I made an entrance that would set the tone. I was calm, collected, dressed sharply, carrying only what I needed, my folder of meticulously organized evidence. The air in the courtroom felt heavier than usual, as if everyone sensed the tension but didn't yet know why. My wife sat there, confident as ever, her lawyer by her side. They both assumed I was unprepared, emotional, or caught off guard. I allowed them that illusion for only a moment. When the judge called the session to order, I calmly rose and addressed the court. "I have something I need to present," I said, holding up my folder. "Evidence that will clarify the situation and help determine the appropriate outcome in this case." Her lawyer's confident smile faltered almost immediately. The subtle shift in their posture, the way their fingers twitched slightly, the micro-expression of panic, they realized I wasn't bluffing. This wasn't going to be an easy proceeding. I started with the messages. Screenshots, timelines, explicit conversations, all laid out in chronological order. Each one exposed a pattern of deception, betrayal, and manipulation. The judge read them with growing interest, occasionally glancing at my wife, who was frozen in place. Next, I presented witness statements. Friends who had been aware of her strange behavior, neighbors who had observed unusual visits, even colleagues who had seen inconsistencies in her stories. Everything corroborated the messages. Every story pointed to the same conclusion. She had been dishonest, and she had calculated her moves carefully, assuming I would never notice. Then came the financial records. I had uncovered transactions that didn't match her explanations. Payments to mysterious accounts, sudden cash withdrawals, and other red flags. Each one added weight to the picture I had painted, leaving no room for doubt. By the time I finished presenting, her lawyer was visibly shaking. I saw them stammer over words, stumble through attempted objections, and struggle to maintain the composure they had so confidently worn in earlier hearings. Their panic was a silent admission. They had underestimated me. And my wife, oh, my wife. I had seen arrogance before, but now it crumbled into shock, anger, and then desperation. She whispered, "This isn't real. You can't." But the evidence spoke louder than her protests.
When she realized the depth of my preparation, the reality of her choices hit her. The confident facade she had worn for months shattered in the courtroom, leaving only fear and disbelief. The judge listened patiently to both sides, but was clearly leaning toward the facts. After reviewing everything, he ruled decisively. Custody arrangements favored fairness. Financial divisions accounted for the evidence, and the court acknowledged the deliberate deceit on her part. My wife's plan to take everything had failed spectacularly. She tried to argue, tried to plead, even tried to blame me for noticing, but it was too late. Every attempt to manipulate the outcome only highlighted her arrogance and recklessness. The courtroom had witnessed her unravel, her lawyer had crumbled, and justice had been served. As the judge adjourned the hearing, I stood quietly, taking in the moment. I felt a strange mix of relief, satisfaction, and empowerment. I had been hurt, betrayed, and blindsided, but I had turned those emotions into focus, strategy, and strength. I hadn't just survived this battle. I had emerged victorious with dignity intact. Walking out of the courthouse, I could see her and her lawyer exchanging glances that spoke volumes. No words were needed. The outcome was clear. I didn't gloat. I didn't scream or throw accusations. I simply walked away with my head held high, knowing I had taken control of a situation that could have destroyed me, emotionally and financially. I thought about the years of betrayal, the lies, the manipulations, and the arrogance she had carried with her. I realized that closure didn't come from revenge. It came from reclaiming my power and asserting my worth. The poetic justice was in the quiet dignity, the undeniable facts, and the recognition that I had not been broken by her. I had learned something important. Betrayal exposes character, and justice doesn't always have to be loud to be effective. The calm, methodical approach, the preparation, the patience, the evidence was enough to tip the scales. She thought she could cheat and walk away. She learned the hard way. Now, as I move forward, I carry with me a sense of peace. The past will always be a part of me, but it no longer controls me. I've rebuilt my confidence, my sense of self, and my outlook on life. I've learned to value honesty, loyalty, and integrity above all, and I won't allow anyone to take that from me again. The courthouse steps behind me were no longer a battlefield. They were a monument to resilience, a symbol of standing firm when everything else seemed to collapse. I walked away, ready to start the next chapter of my life, with clarity, strength, and the satisfaction that justice finally had been served.